Welcome to the SPL Rundown, your weekly look at all of the Smite Pro League action. I'm your host, Apam, and this week we're joined by the coach for Spacestation Gaming, Joshy, as well as two of our regular analysts, that is Lermy and Frost. Join me later on for an interview with Variety, the solo laner for the Renegades now. But first, we're here to talk about last week's games, and there are a lot of games, an extra game in fact, so we'll start with the extra game, which was PK versus Renegades. And I think we're finally seeing PK step up to the plate here and do well against some of these higher tier teams. I know Radiance maybe is slipping as well at the same time. What were you guys' thoughts on this extra set, especially now that we have another one coming up next week too?
One, who's the brave soul that wants to talk about adapting? I know somebody wants to.
Ooh,
Frost, I think that's you. I think that means it's you.
Game 1, 2-5 Daji, and it's not even one of those like, oh, he was putting out the damage, but he was dying for it. Like, he didn't put out the damage either. He was just barely above both supports. And then in the game 2, you got his Hoonbots, which he enjoys, but I guess he just wasn't enjoying it that day, going 0-8. To me, adapting is a very cerebral player. I think he rides on his own momentum and his own how his mental is that day. I guess it just was a rough day for him overall.
Joshy, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of not unfortunate for Radiance, but obviously they came back from that other week where they had 2 losses versus teams on the lower end, so maybe their confidence was a bit shook, which is why I kind of thought the Daji pick was weird, because every time I like to see adapting, I like to see him carry on gods like Ravana and just going in. Then they picked this Daji. I mean, it was a good Daji pick game, but I think it's just rough to pick it in the meta, especially like in this phase. And then, yeah, obviously he didn't have good game 1. And then I think players, especially like adapting and Radiance in general, like they definitely ride on momentum.
Sure.
So that game 1 going into game 2, especially after last week, it's just like a constant downhill, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and game 2 was so much shorter than game 1 was. At least Radiance put up a fight game 1, but game 2, they sort of, I don't know, weren't able to sustain anything with adapting going 0-8, you know, in the Hoonbots. Lermy, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's
Go ahead,
how
Frost.
that goes on that. No, I was gonna say, if you do not want to get caught bleeding around PK, if anyone's gonna jump on that, oh, there's blood in the water, it's gonna be zapping the boys.
Lermy?
Yeah, we've seen them do that time and time again, but I definitely think that there was just something wrong. Like, they woke up on the wrong side of the bed today because, I mean, just in general, they did not play well, but I also think that, I mean, especially in game 1, they, like, chose a very hard strategy to kind of make work. Like Joshy said, it was a good Daji game, for sure, but, like, why pick Daji when you can pick other characters that, like, you don't have to be hitting the multi-chain pile-outs or whatever you want to do for that? Like, I'm not going to say there's so many other characters, but there are definitely other characters that could have slotted into that comp that would have been, you know, a lot less stress on adapting. And, like, of course, this is adapting's god, like,
sure, whatever,
like, that's what he wants to play, for sure. But sometimes it can be nice to just, you know, pick the GG easy character, like, have some, I don't know, a little extra setup. And I also am, like, kind of confused with this Terra pick, because she's kind of been, like, in and out of meta, right? Like, Terra kind of died for a long time because she kind of doesn't exist as a character until level 3.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we've been seeing her more and more, and I think that's because, like, at least at the SEC level, it gets completely stomped on whenever it gets played, but once we get back up into the SPL level, people kind of know, like, how to manage, okay, I'm not gonna let this Terra get invaded, or okay, I'm gonna send my jungler over here to make sure that the Terra's chilling or whatever. But, I don't know, I think that because they had to be a little bit worried about that, you know, their comp doesn't really do anything particularly well. They've got the Wukong and the Daji to kind of push forward, and then of course Ra and Rom have the long range follow-up, and then Terra's just kind of there. You know, I don't really see what she does better than anyone else.
Sure.
Yeah, to me, this set as well, like, obviously, they had the 2 losses. If you go back to Phase 1 playoffs, they had, like, the Terrorama, and that was, like, their go-to in every game.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it also feels like they're just going back to what they knew worked before. And now they come into this set just, okay, let's just play what we used to play when we had to win, and then it just still doesn't work out for them.
Yeah. Any thoughts on PK here? I mean, they sort of looked pretty great in this set. I'm thinking about the Hoonbots from Fred in game 1 seemed very impactful. And even in game 2, he went 6-0-5 on the Camazotz. Are we seeing sort of Fred, you know, make his way back to sort of the cream of the crop of the junglers now?
I definitely think he's improved in terms of being a little bit more consistent. And honestly, I was surprised seeing the Camazotz come out at all because it's kind of like, again, another character that floats in and out of the meta depending on when people feel like it's good. And in that comp, I was kind of thinking, it could work out. It's not the best. It's pretty safe up against the Hunbots and things of that nature. So, of course, it works. But, Cubo had an on day for sure. This was the day where he was able to pop off, and we've seen it time and time again where he'll play something like Robin and he'll have a sick game the one day and then the next day he plays the same exact character and he just doesn't do very well. But through the course of this very long phase, and especially through the first phase as well, we've definitely seen him grow more consistent. He doesn't have those off days as frequently, and when they are off days, they're not as bad as they were before.
Yeah, I think PK definitely good in this. They also pretty much got the exact same comp in both games, but they had Cuba Fred on Camazotz for the second game.
Yep.
So they definitely got what they wanted to play, it feels like, and I feel like in each lane they were playing pretty well. And obviously the dual lane they were ahead, in the solo lane they were ahead, so it makes the whole map easier. And yeah, they just have Paul and Cuba Fred kind of popping off this set.
I think it's coming down to what Zap said in his interview. He said they're getting closer. They want to make a playoff run. They're playing a lot cleaner together. And due to that, it's helping out Cuvo more because before you had this issue where Solo's getting pressured, Zap's getting pressured. And I guess this kind of messes with Cuvo in a way where I don't know where to be because you got Paul fighting, Zap's fighting, and Bellar's fighting. All three of them are fighting. Which part of the map do I want to go to?
Sure.
I think now they're more organized and it's honestly allowing them to go, all right, Cuvo, push on this side, we'll hang back a little bit here, or we'll push at the same time together. Because before you got Zap getting 2v1 with Cuvo being just 100 meters away. Zap, what are you doing? I think now with them all kind of coming together, playing cleaner, as Zap said, it's just helping his playstyle more.
Sure. Last thing I wanted to mention, I know Biggie, when he was on our show, talked about how Kema is just one of Cuvo's sort of pet picks. Something that he sort of likes to pick up and has been picking up in the past as well. So maybe that's a reason why we see him pick up the Camazotz a lot. Because I don't really think we see any of the other SPL junglers really look towards Camazotz in the jungle very much. Or any of the other SPL teams. I can't really recall anyone else really playing it. Maybe Adapting has.
That's the only one that I can think of is Adapting. Out a couple times.
It's just those two. Maybe he was trying to take it from Adapting?
Maybe. I don't know. All right, moving on then to Ghost versus Sanguine, which was, I guess, back and forth games, and this is kind of Ghost's prerogative to maybe troll game 2. Is that just what we saw here?
Yeah, it's always win the first one, experiment, and then finish off strong, I suppose. Here, Sanguine looking like they're coming back in a little bit, maybe stopping the slide down. They just got their coach in.
Yeah, they did.
Team house, yeah.
Good for them. I'm really excited for them. But, dude, they are afraid of Captain Twig. And I mean, we'll talk about it later, but I guess that's, a reason why he banned Anubis?
Talk about it now. They banned it out of nowhere.
Well,
for
maybe we
every
could just
spectator,
hit
we
that,
just
they did play it later on in the week, and it did actually look pretty good. Blink Anubis, I mean, was what Sanguine was afraid of, so... Yeah, talk about that ban, because that seems pretty relevant. They must have scrimmed and seen it.
Yeah. It's nuts to just be watching this. Okay, last ban, what you got? Anubis? Why Anubis? Did you misclick it? Was it something else somewhere else in the A's?
That's what they said on cast. They were like, he misclicked it for sure, definitely.
There's no way he misclicked 3 times, and then unfortunate that we didn't get to see it that one, but Sanguine knew. I guess something happened in scrims.
Go ahead.
Captain Twig has played it in a few scrims I can remember from. I don't know how long ago he started picking this. Obviously, it must have been at least a few weeks ago if Sanguine knew about it. But yeah, in that game they were banning the Hebo, then they banned the Anubis Poseidon. So yeah, they were definitely trying to target out Twig, and then I can't remember what he ended up on, the Oloron, I think, the last 2.
Yeah, he played the Oloron in the first 2 games, and he got Poseidon in the last one.
Yeah, and I don't know about the Anubis. I guess it does work because he did show it off in the next set, right?
Yep. I wanted to mention that it seems after the bye week, kind of you know how when we get to LAN, there are always these surprise picks and bans that come from the 2 weeks or the 3 weeks that teams have off that leading up to the LAN, it kind of feels like we've had that with the bye week in the league, where they're like, people have workshopped a couple of things, and there's some new strats coming out, and I especially see that with Ghost, like with this Awilix pick, and we see Sam actually pick it up later on in the week too, which is why I'm bringing it up. Are we expecting to see some more of these new game plans come to light as this phase progresses, you guys think?
I don't know, because Sam has performed before on the Wheelish.
Sure.
Not against top teams. It was mostly kind of like a Renegades stomp thing, but now it's just the mechanics that he has with the Wheelish. Knock up, be damned. You don't need it. He just ults, runs at your back line, you're dead.
Yeah, I think the Wheelix space is kind of random. Well, I don't know if it's random, but like sometimes they will have like one jump, and usually like when we're doing picks match, like why would you ever pick a Wheelix when they only have one jump? But I guess he just like loves the god. He's like really good early game. He can run the map on it.
Sure.
Like even without the ult, like you can ult for just like damage, just for your auto, and you can just plow someone down. So yeah, I don't think he really picks it for the pullback, I guess.
Sure.
Sometimes he just likes playing the god.
Yeah. Maybe one of his pet picks as well.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. Because let's see here, gravity surge. Let's say that you don't do anything, you don't get the pull, right? It's 70% attack speed increase, 60 physical power, but also the passive for 2.5 seconds you get 30% physical power increase if you start the fight, and that's exactly what he does. He just ults from way off, blinks in, fights you, and I think there's just a massive power surge that is enough to take out the mid laner or the ADC.
Yeah, that changed her passive, I guess, a while back. Was like, it really changed how you can play her as a character in the jungle, and especially since she recently got, I believe it was a little bit of a buff in the damage on the 2, and then before it was, reduced mana cost on Suku. It's just slowly becoming better and better and better to pick a Wheelix, so I think Sam is definitely one of the first people to kind of make it meta, because I feel like a Wheelix is not really ever like tippity top, like I'm gonna pick a Wheelix no matter what, like jumps be damned.
Sure.
But I think for sure if you're playing the way that he is, then it can work out really well.
All right. Any final thoughts about that Ghost versus Sangwon set?
I think generally this is a pretty good set. Obviously, it was 2-1. I don't know if it's so much like game 2. Like I know we joked about like Ghost trolling, but I do think Sangwon has been playing a lot better. They definitely dipped in form like 2 or 3 weeks ago. We saw them lose a couple of sets, but I think now that like they're ramping up. Like PK and like Sangwon and United are all ramping up. So it's going to be very interesting to see all their games for sure.
Sure. Frost, learn me anything? All right, let's move on.
No, I think these are just business as usual games right now. It's kind of like we don't want to show strats just yet because we're saving the good stuff, but we gotta do something, right? We're not just gonna throw our games.
Yeah. Well, speaking of strats, next game is Radiance versus SSG, and Joshy's here to break down all the secret strats, right? But again, this was actually pretty clinical by you guys. I mean, not to belittle Radiance too much, but you guys ended this in 2 pretty quick games. Sort of almost run of the mill, it seems like. How did you guys think about these games going into it, and how do you feel about the outcome, Joshy?
Yeah, into every single matchup, we're always super confident that we can get a 2-0. Pretty good that we did get a 2-0. I know game 2 was a little bit more shaky than game 1. Game 1 was very, very clinical, I feel like, especially because they left over the Afro. I was pretty surprised because obviously we're always kind of like, will a team leave open Afro? And for a few weeks, we're kind of been waiting for a team to test that. And I feel like Radiance tested it, but I feel like they didn't really do anything with it. They kind of just let us get it. And then they banned it game 2 because they're like, okay, we can't deal with this. And then game 2, it was just business as usual as well. Like we're just playing the game, and then late game, like we win one really good fight, and the game's kind of over.
Yeah. Is that something that you guys focus on? I feel like it happens quite a bit in your sets where you're like, focus on maybe 1 or 2 fights in the mid to late game to really propel us and snowball us to taking the Titan. Is that something that is like a focus for you guys?
I'm not sure it's more of a focus or like a playstyle. It's just kind of how the games go. Like a lot of the time we do pick like a lot of mid game and late game characters. Like we're like the kind of the opposite of Ghost, where they'll just have like Ymir, Cupid, Poseidon, and just run it down. Whereas we'll just have like the Chang'e or the Jingwei and do all Ramen dual lane, and we're just trying to farm it out. It's not like a thing that we say like, we're just gonna get late game and win. Like we never say that, because obviously we always want to win early game. We always want to win mid game if we can.
Sure.
But I think we handle, well, usually I feel like we do handle like invades a lot easier than other teams. Like if Ghost were to invade like another team, I feel like they might shut down, but we are like better on being on time and fighting them, so we don't need to like match their pressure as much. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's so much of a playstyle. It's just, I still think that's just how the games go. Also, the boys have been together for what, 2 years now, apart from Vote, but ADC is kind of just ADC.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just like a synergy thing. But yeah.
Sure. Frost, Lermy, what were your initial thoughts on this game, this set?
Honestly, I don't know what kind of sauce Radiance was on with this like Mercury Raw stuff, but I don't know. I mean, we've seen, we're going to talk about it later, of course, but Sino's kind of on the Mercury train, right? And then also adapting, being on this, and I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think it's very good right now. I think it kind of, you know, the crits and stuff, you know, that's good. That's kind of how you have to build Mercury in a sense, because you just really don't see him built any other way. And if you want that like super hyper late game carry that's going to be a little more effective, I'd imagine you go for something like Baka or Kali or something that can like build into chin size and be effective that way. But we're seeing kind of the opposite, and it's kind of confusing because I feel like Mercury can have some solid utility, but his early game just does not exist. And that was kind of my big question mark here, was like, not only that, but like there's just not a whole lot of options right now for Radiance, like with the comps that they've been going for, to like, I don't know, put themselves in a good position to actually have this Mercury work out. Because, like, of course, they've got a solid dual lane. Their soul lane's going to live. But come the mid game, you know, the Sun Wukong's not going to do as well. I mean, against King Arthur, it doesn't really matter that much. But even, like, just kind of ignoring all the specific picks, I just don't... I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know why these characters are getting picked more often.
Frost, what about you?
I think, as Joshy said earlier, they might just be going back to what's familiar for them. And he's always said Mercury is Thor, or Thor is Mercury on hard mode. To him, Merc's a lot easier to run the game with. So that might have been it. It might have also been planning for more like lane fights, because I think Merc is amazing in lane fights. In the jungle, not so much, because that ult is it's a nightmare to get off. You're gonna get caught on a twig, on a rock, on a pebble, whatever. The geometry in there is just nuts. I think they're kind of working their synergy back. At the start of this phase, they were looking really rough. They hit their stride, and that's when it's like, okay, they understand their tempo, they understand where they're going. First, it was a roar going too deep, then big man Tings couldn't do any damage. Now it's sort of, we're building it all back up. I think they fell apart severely, and they're just going through the routine of getting it all back up again. I think this is growing pains, but I think they're going to come out on top again, unless at this point somebody's just like, all right, we did it once, that was annoying, and I don't want to do it again. But aside from that, I have faith that they do make massive strides coming in.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to phase 1 as well, I remember Radiance in the middle of the phase, it was looking a bit rocky as well. They lost like a bunch of sets in the middle, and then they finished really well, and then obviously they like got to the playoffs finals. So yeah, I think they just need to hit their stride again, and then like in like a month or two, and then, you know, leading up to Worlds, if they can keep the momentum going, then this team is for sure in a good spot.
Sure.
Yeah, right. As long as they don't stay losing and they don't lose every single game, then they're chilling. There's not a big deal.
Yeah, it reminds me. I feel like I asked one of these players about it, but I talked about. I might have even asked Aurora about it, but somehow super teams, you know, they sort of have a falling out. You know, I thought it would be maybe earlier this season, and you know, we hadn't really seen that happen with Radiance, but we didn't really expect the sort of COVID surprise and things like that. So, you know,
You could call it that.
I mean,
What? The COVID surprise.
it is what it is.
What
So,
a terrible restaurant.
you know, did maybe that have something to do with, you know, maybe pushing the team off, or do you think, you know, the team is mentally strong? You know, I don't know. I do trust a lot of those guys there, like Aurora and Biggie, to sort of hold the fort down pretty well. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I think they need their independence. No, I'm not saying split up, but when players fall apart, they all fall apart differently. As people, we just have different ways of coping with what's kind of wrong in a situation. Some can push ahead through it. Some have that tilt factor. Some of them may not have the confidence and just kind of need to work that back up. That's why it just seems like they're all on different paces. Right now, Aurora with the Terra, he's 2v1ing the ADC and the mid, as if he's thinking, you know what? The value that comes from me if I'm 1v2 on the DPS, that means you guys can 4v3 on the rest of the team. And like that should be the turnaround factor. BMT, he's playing it safe, still kind of doing the damage where it needs to put it. And it's sort of like the others aren't really meshing just yet. Benji's still having a really good time right now. He's the rock right now.
Anything else?
I remember one thing in our set in game 1. I remember Aurora would like keep running in, and like it felt to me that like their ults were so off together. Like there would be a different like stages. I remember there was like a 3v3, and they were trying to kill Dada's really hard, but like they mistimed a bunch of stuff. So maybe their synergy is off a little bit, and they need to like get working that again. Obviously, they had a long because the COVID situation also happened between the break. So it's like they had like a 3-week break or something maybe.
Yeah.
So and sometimes a long break like that can just break a team down.
It's also in his shot calling. Like some are very aggressive shot callers going, we're doing this. Aurora's is a if you listen in on his old comm videos, it's a sort of questioning kind of thing while doing it. So it's like, can we go in as he's going in? And that's sort of something that you can fall out of pace with. You have to understand that when he's saying, can we, we're going in and we need to now.
All right, next game this week was E United versus Renegades. And this one was another 3-game set with E United completing, I guess, what we would call a reverse sweep because Renegades took the first game. I don't know if that's exactly what it's called in a 3-game set, but you know, E United did take it 2-0, win the last 2 games, coming back. I did think the Renegades looked pretty strong in game 1, but seems like Baskin and Gino have started to sort of make their mark on this team and are pushing them towards wins. What are you guys' initial thoughts on this set?
I think Gino's starting to look comfy. At the start of it, he was a little rigid, and now he's really coming into his own. With these boys, their advantage is going to be they're having fun. If you put a tie and a suit on them, they're going to be so stiff, not look so nice. But once it's just like, you take that tie off, put on your best Hawaiian t-shirt, we're just going to party. That's when they really shine. I was so expecting the revenge of variety here, and that didn't pan out as I intended.
I mean, it seems pretty good game 1.
It's just straight chilling. Baskin is like, I don't even know what that guy is on, but he's on something, right? Because he comes out of the SCC literally dominating every single matchup that he's in, and like he just changes roles like that. Like that's it. That's all he had to do is say, "I'm solo now," and you go, "Okay." And then in one game he goes 4-0-8.
Yeah, that's
game 2, and then what's the next 2-1-6 in game 3? Like you could not ask for more from someone. I feel like, and Baskin just does it.
He does seem to be one of the only players that's picking up this Cerberus. Like him and, I guess, Variety was the other one who was picking up Cerberus. What does Baskin and the Cerberus sort of bring to the solo lane?
A lot of damage to begin with. Like that character's damage scaling and everything is just completely underrated. The passive's nice to work with. I think it's just something that he's really comfortable on. He's really good fighting with. It's also, I think, something... I don't think this is Premier Baskin. I think this is something he's just cozy on. If anyone gets the brass to ban it, I think we're going to see something even scarier. I think right now this is his, these characters are freelo, but not the, business characters.
Well, because, I mean, he did play Amaterasu game 1, and we basically talked about how Ama is maybe the top pick in the solo lane now, so that wasn't the one that won him the games, I guess.
Yeah, I think Juan is really sleeper right now, to be honest. I think that little teeny tiny change on his 3, I think honestly could push him back up. And he does so much damage, dude. It is ridiculous. His healing is not necessarily as top notch, but I mean, if you're able to get that in combat stacked up, and like they haven't bought a lot of anti-heal, which I mean, it's the SPL, they live on anti-heal. But at the same time, I think hopefully this success that we saw here from Variety will kind of, bring Guan back a little bit, because he's good. I sincerely think that he'll be coming back soon.
Sure. Joshy, you're about to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, going back to solo picks like Cerberus, I think a lot of it is opened up because now we see almost every solo lane are not going TP. And before, if you had like TP and Blink on Cerberus, you'd blink in and then you'd kind of just die. But now if you can go Blink and Beats, I think gods like Wukong, like it's just so much better that you can go in, beads and then get out, because before you'd go in and then you'd just be dead because the enemy hunter was just hitting you with 10 autos. So that's why we're seeing more gods like Cerberus, I guess. And yeah, maybe it's just a comfort pick. Also, they had Ra, so maybe that played into a little bit. But
sure.
Yeah.
Anything else I missed about this set that you guys wanted to talk about?
Yeah, it's like soul laners are over TP, hunters are over Aegis. What's next? Beads are gonna go? I don't even know at this point.
I mean, Variety's still playing traditional and whatnot. I'm just wondering how that goes for them. Both of these teams swapped out their solo laners. You know, just big changes on EU, but still, one of them's going, our trade worked. One of them's going, what did we do? Where's the value in this? What's going on? I don't think they're the type to just, blame Variety or throw it out the way. But Renegades is showing they're already considering changes. United as well, but United is in a much more advantageous position where they can go, this is nice. This is working out. Renegades still got to figure that out. And I wonder what the plan is for them. Do they just kind of stick out and grind it? Are they looking at other spots? I don't know.
I think the roster change for both teams is actually a plus on both sides. I think if you look at this United team, it's kind of like the Armada, right? I think it was last season.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just like familiarity. They were like really good friends. They all like respect each other's players and stuff. And then also, obviously, we saw the SOT situation in the previous week. So I guess things didn't work out with SOT, and then Variety was a free agent, and they just snatched them up. So I think both teams came off the trade at least thinking this is good for us. And then in the set specifically, I think either team could have won. It was a pretty close set, as we saw. So yeah, I don't think winning or losing this set doesn't really have any like effect on either team, because they're both just trying to progress right now.
Sure. All right, then. Well, moving on to the next set of the week, which was PK versus Obey. I think the set win this versus Obey here put PK into the top 4 finally this phase. Thank God my picks are coming through. My faith in PK is finally paying off here. And it looked pretty even in game 1. Obey come back strong game 2, and then it's the scary carry show in game 3 where he gets like a triple kill so early on. What are the first thing that popped out to you this game? I know Paul played Persephone game 1 and looked fantastic, so we can start there if you guys want to talk about Paul and his Persephone.
Yeah, I think most teams are trying to like adventure with Persephone, like let other people play it. But I think the one person that you can't let play is Paul. Like he was the first person to like. I remember when it came out, he got like diamond within like a few days or something.
Sure.
Like, he loves this card, and he's like. I think he's also by far the best Persephone. So I mean, but I guess if you want to test it, and if you can beat Paul on Persephone, you can beat anyone on Persephone. So
yeah, well, they gave him the Thought and Hebo later on, and he did pretty well on both of those. I know they lost game 2, but I think that might have been more, picking some odd team fights. Zap, played a little bit out of position. Yeah, as much as I'm a fanboy, you got to call him out a little bit, right?
Because he says he's playing clean, but he has a disrespect factor to him. That's what makes him so fun to watch. There's some teams he just does not respect.
I don't know, dude. I'm just looking at these drafts and I'm looking at Obey's top 3 and I'm like, yes. All of these picks are perfect, great. And then we see the bottom 2, Sylvanas, Mercury, and I'm like, what just happened? Are we looking at the same team right now? Game 2, Terra Mercury. Okay, hello. Again, Sylvanas, Erlang Shen is fine, but I don't know what sauce Bobby is on right now.
I don't either.
He just consistently, dude, he has a way to get on my nerves because he's playing Sylvanas, Terra, and Ymir, and I hate all of those characters so much.
God.
I don't think that they're very good right now, and
Sylvanas especially seems, pretty bad. Like, kind of immobile, can't really dive the back line, which I think is what a lot of teams are trying to do to win fights, is like, you get rid of those DPS options, and that's a pretty good way to swing the fight your way. And Sylvanas is just, he can't really do that. Why is he picking Sylvanas? Do you have any ideas about it?
I think Inbound just loves immobile characters for the sake of immobility. I don't know why. But there is a theory of like old school, these were the traditional supports. They're really good at hunkering down and helping out whoever's by them. Not in a dive meta, no. I think both of you die.
Yeah.
It's just not
Whoever's
his
by you,
style
I just think
either.
all of you die.
He's just like does not do well on the facilitating characters. When he's played his best, it's been like on Horus a little while back, and it's been like on Fafnir, and those characters can be very aggressive, still have a little bit of facilitation, but they're not full facilitator mode like a Kepri would be, or even Sylvanas and Taro from this set. Like that is not the style that is working for him. I can't get behind it, honestly. I can, you know what? I'm opening up to the Ymir a little bit, just a little bit, and honestly, though, I think that his best characters are still sitting like at the top there, like especially with Kuzenbo. Like I genuinely think that Kuzenbo is one of the best characters in this meta right now, just because of how obnoxious he can be, and comboing it with really long range follow up, like with the ROM or something, is just so good. But like if he's able to get characters like that, then yes, please go off, King. But not with Sylvanas. Let's put that one back on the shelf.
Well,
Yeah,
He's just bored. I don't know.
Go ahead, Joshy.
Yeah, I remember literally the first game they played this year. I remember he picked Circuit, and I know they got absolutely stomped that game, but I was like, dude, Bobby's popping off. He was carrying the early game on Circuit, just running around the map on this mobile character. So yeah, I definitely think that's his playstyle. And then also, especially this game 1 draft, it actually doesn't make sense. Like, they bottom picked the Mercury Sylvanas into that comp. I don't know how they're even going to kill anyone, and they're just going to die on repeat, I feel like.
Anything else about this game? I know we probably didn't talk about PK too much, but they look pretty good. I know Zap played Heimdall in both of his sets this week quite a bit. Are we seeing Heim come back into sort of the ADC rotation? He sort of fell out of there for a little bit.
I just think Zap hates getting ganked. And
Yeah.
Heim is one of the best ones to
he's made
avoid
some,
being ganked.
He's made some great plays with that Bifrost, I think. I feel like we've seen him use it particularly effectively compared to...
Oh, he's very good at using it aggressively, but he's also not going to hesitate. You come near him, he's going to ult out, he's going to Bifrost back to base, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's one way.
Heim does so much damage, and like you just need a lot of damage in your ADC in this meta. So, I mean, it definitely fits up there in the 3... I don't know what was banned those specific games, but also I think like Zap is one of the people that always played the Heim like throughout the year, and when a lot of people other weren't picking it up, so it's definitely like a come for him too.
Sure. All right, let's move on to Radiant versus Ghost. And again, Radiance wasn't able to break their losing streak, but I think they did look better in this one. They were able to take a game off Ghost. Now, I know we say that Ghost is known to be trolling the game twos, but you know, it did actually look like a pretty good win from Radiance, and they had, you know, sort of what I would call a land game plan in game 2, where you just try to fight it out from 0-0, or before 0-0 even, to be honest. But maybe we should start with the Goobus finally gets picked, and actually seemed to go pretty well for these boys.
Jesus, oh god. I think, like I said, I think these guys have no fear and play purely for value, you know? I think even SSG kind of has sort of that, because that's where I learned the Cherry will do his jungle route and then go dive into the tier 2 tower, die, go back to Fountain. All it cost him was a death. Like, his KD looks ugly, but the value in it is insane. So same for this. First blood, I kill you under tower, you trade me out, it doesn't matter. I got the first blood gold. Like, I win that trade.
Sure.
And I think that's just the peak of their playstyle. And also, it's Twig. He knows the small value in that, the big value in PvE. He's a duelist. Anubis is a big duel character. And it looks like this was their plan, where they go, okay, get the Titan vulnerable, then we just walk down and shred it.
Yeah, I think Ghost are just feeling themselves right now as well.
Sure.
Like Ghost, I feel like they'll play anything. I'm pretty sure they just play the same gods if they could every game. But like this Anubis as well, like the first blood especially, like that's just a super confidence play from Twig. Like I don't feel, and many other mid laners would just be doing that even if it's free. So yeah, it just shows the confidence in these guys right now. And then I think late game the Anubis was kind of a detriment to the team fights. I feel like I remember they were super far ahead Radiance, and then they stole a fire, I think. And then after that, like Ghost didn't win a single team fight until like the 30-minute mark, and then they won one fight and the game was over. But yeah, that's just Anubis, right? Like they were just like picking people, and the Anubis was always out of range or just occupied by something. But I guess if he likes it, he's been picking it a bit. I guess Sangwon's banning against him, so
it must be doing some work.
Yeah.
I honestly think that was their mishap. I think the intention was to play exactly how they did there, early to mid to Fire Giant. The monkey wrench that got thrown in was Benji stealing it with the Amaterasu. But I think if that had been fine there, that Fire Giant, one fight, or you just walk straight to the Titan and it's over. I don't think it was meant to go for as long as it did with them, because I agree. Team fights, late game Anubis, not that good. Not that good at all. I think the only intention is get him to the Titan.
Game 2 was, a bit messier than that. Started off early on with a 5v5 in the Fire Giant pit. Is this sort of how Radiance can you sort of like make it scrappy, make it dirty early on, and is that a way that they can maybe pull some wins?
That was kind of a mistake because with Persephone, you want to go put the plants out early. I think that fight was for Ghost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think Radiance intended to be fighting there the entire time because he couldn't set up those plants early. This one, they're experimenting again with the Ymir pick. Oh, God, I don't know. Inbound and PBM right now. I love them both, but I'm getting tired of seeing the Hercules on anyone. I've got the vein in my neck whenever I see a Hercules, because they do have that early game. Something about them, mid, late, they just throw. Same thing with Ymir. On paper, great, and it could go so well, but then sometimes it just doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I also didn't love the Nuwa pick. I mean, it works really well, at least in the early game, at dealing with the Bakasura and the aggression coming out, because Baka can't do anything to you as Nuwa until he can literally, like, 3-shot you with a couple of Butcher Blade autos. But, like, once you get to the point where you're at an even playing field and this Baka comes up to you and you just straight up do not have time to get the clay minion stun in, because he's gonna drop the regurgitate on you, be CC immune, and then you're dead. You don't have enough time to get up into the ult or anything like that. I didn't love it in that case. In a lot of other instances, like up against something like Akali, it would have worked out fine, but this particular matchup was not great, and Twig kind of got picked on come the late game, and that kind of opened them up to a lot of issues.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess it kind of works on paper. It's like DiCaprio, the one of the backliners, they're like 500 health, and then you new ult and they're just dead. But that you kind of need to get like 40 minutes to like for that to work. And I feel like a lot of games are also early. So yeah, I would have preferred a different pick as well. But he has played it a few times this year, so it's kind of like when everything else is banned, I'll just pick the new one and just play my game.
I mean, he did pop off on the Poseidon in the next game, so I think he's really finding his comfort in mid lane right now.
Oh, God, that's when he's angry. He goes game 1, game 2, picks the Poseidon. I think he's soloed like every mid laner so far. He attempted it again in this one, but I remember the first time he did this, it was a sloppy looking set. He goes Poseidon and just instantly level 5 1v1 on Shinto. He is a shiner. This boy is a scrapper. He's a 2nd, 3rd, 4th jungle. This whole team is nothing but junglers.
Any final thoughts on this set before we move on?
Yeah, I think Radiance looked better in this set than all the other sets. Like we saw game 1 and game 1 especially, like Radiance, they didn't die much early, but they were like 5k behind, like pretty early, like a goal for a few kills. And I think they just wanted to come into game 2 with a bit more aggression, and let's just not lose by just doing nothing. And I think that worked out, because if you can put Ghost behind early, that's definitely your window to win. But then game 3, yeah, it was just classic Ghost again.
Sure. The last set of the weekend was Sanguine versus Obey. I think Sanguine finally got tired of losing and decided to make it a quick one here. And even worse was a salty run back kind of for the Obey boys here, and didn't really work out. I guess it's called a salty run back for a reason, right? Sanguine looking really good. Can't really give Yarkor Ama anymore. Can't really give most solo laners Ama, but Yarkor looked pretty good on Amaterasu this set. What are you guys' initial thoughts and ideas about the Sanguine versus Obey set this weekend?
Obey just back themselves into a corner like constantly. Every single draft they do it. And they triple banned out Shinto, which like cool, like that's great. And then they first pick Umoja because they're like, oh shit, wait, Rangyu has a sick Umoja. We can't give him Umoja. But then again, Bobby doesn't have a sick Umoja, so you kind of have to pick and choose there what you can deal with. And it looks like there were 4 characters that Obey couldn't deal with, and they just did not, come as prepared as they should have been to this one. And I mean, I love the Thorcella pick for Deki, but again, going back to this Mercury, it just does not work in this combination. I'm not loving it. There needs to be a little more work done in this draft, I think.
Joshy, you were about to say something?
Yeah, the issue for me is like obviously the run back. So game 1, it was like 10 minutes in, and they're already like 2 or 3K behind. So I feel like usually when a game is super long and it's like 40 minutes and you haven't really played it bad, or not so bad, but like it worked out for you in somewhat, then sure, you can run it back and be like, hey, if we just don't do this and this wrong. But like they kind of just got stomped by Sanguine in like 20, like it was like a 28-minute game or something, but like they were never ever in a position to win that game, I felt like, Obey. So that's why I was so confused when they just ran it back. It's like, okay, what are you going to do differently here? And then obviously we saw nothing really changed. They still got kind of rolled over again.
Yeah, the first game was 28 minutes, and the second game, the Salty Runback, was 24. So, Sanguine obviously knew what they were looking at and played it even better, so to speak. Frost, what about you? Do you have any thoughts on this set?
I think that would just got a bit of a Renegade fever there. They're known for the, all right, was it the comp? Was it something else happened here? I agree 100% that it didn't look convincing at any point in time. So for them to reiterate the same draft as, I suppose that's the definition of insanity, no?
Yeah.
That's one way to put it. But I guess another kind of question is the Susano pickup here for Panatom. I kind of like it though, because Panatom's kind of been in a weird spot recently where I think that people have argued that he's the weakest link of Sanguine or something like that. Something, kind of ignorant of like what he's been doing. And I think that him going back to one of his signatures from when it was more so like a meta like where you could play the Susano more often, I think that now that he's kind of back on this comfort pick, he can really shine a lot more, and we've been seeing like Panatom get more and more comfortable and more willing to play these kind of like off-meta kind of things, and I love seeing him on these kind of characters. Like I think that, I don't know, Susano might be coming back a little bit.
Yeah, he seemed very effective, at least in Panatom's hands.
And whilst, some people say Panatom might be the weakest link, you got Shinto, where everyone's saying he is the team. And I suppose it shows with, Hell, Persephone, Habwa. I think they were trying to lean into our mid laner can beat up your mid laner if we take away the picks. But I also think another reason for the doubling up on the composition, they're going for something with this, like, I guess, Yamoja ult, Onion Rings on the other side. They have to face us all around ult, and then you got 3 auto attackers. In theory, we chunk everything down.
Sure.
I don't think they throw this draft away. Not yet. I think they might try one more time.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think the issue is the Mercury as well, because I feel like I kind of feel like my Sino, if he's playing well, then the whole team is playing well, and if he's having a bad game, then maybe the whole team is having a bad game. And the thing with Mercury is like it's so one-dimensional where like you have to build crit, otherwise you don't have an ability in your one. And if you're building crit, then you're not really killing tanks, and you're kind of committed to just doing the same thing. And yeah, it's just like the same with adapting. I didn't like the Mercury in that set. I didn't like the Mercury in this set. I don't know. Like I want to see, even though like he's losing on the Arachne sometimes, it does look pretty good in his hands. I was very confused by the Mercury pick, I'll say.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to give him
I mentioned earlier.
How about it?
Oh, go ahead. Oh.
No. What was it important to do it?
I said earlier that Obey just like to pick things that are so hard to do. Like this comp, in theory, is sick, but they like make it so hard for themselves. Like play the easy stuff, man. You're picking Mercury that can work, but like Joshy said, there's one way that you can do it, and if it doesn't work, then you're fucked. So like, why pick the hard way, man?
Sure.
I think it's an attempt to give Sino his independence again. When he shined, when he was a Smite World Champion, he was able to run the map, put the pressure wherever he needed it. Even in the late game, he was putting the minions where he needed them. Same for Sam for Soccer. That's kind of why he shines so well right now. Him and Cherry, they both go off and shove waves the proper way that they want to. Who was it that we had earlier? I think it was Slaney saying that maybe the issue was the growing pains with Obey didn't allow for Sino to go and run the map. He kind of had to come in and assist Bobby in a way. I think they're feeling like, okay, Bobby's kind of come into his own now, so Sino can kind of go back to his own play style.
Sure.
It might just be an attempt to regain his own autonomy, but Growing pains, baby. Growing pains.
Yeah. All right, it's time for us to make our picks for Week 10. Let's start with Radiance versus Sanguine. And I think we'll start with you, Joshy. Who do you got here in Radiance versus Sanguine?
I think this is one of the hardest sets this week. I think Radiance has a lot to prove. They've lost a bunch of sets now. This is a super important one for the race of like top 5. And Sanguine are also in the same length, kind of like they're up and down in their sets. So Sanguine have been playing really well. So I think I'm going to give it to them. Maybe a 2-1.
Sure. All right, Wormy, how about you?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of in the Sanguine boat here. I think that, presuming that Penitum has another stellar week where he's able to kind of be his own person and kind of pop off with the rest of the squad, I think it's going to go in their favor. But we have seen Radiance do a little bit better. They've been getting cleaned up at least towards the end of last week, so I could see them take a game, but I'm going to go Sanguine 2-1.
All right. Sanguine 2-1 for Wormy. How about you, Frost? Who you got?
Here's the issue. At mid-season, Radiance wiped them.
Yeah.
They even were kind of jabbing at him, saying you picked the wrong team to go against. But Sanguine is the kryptonite to Radiance when they're not playing well. So I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here and thinking Radiance is going to get it all together. If they do, that could go for them. But I think it's too soon to call it. I think it's going to be 2-0 Sanguine. But Radiance are going to be really aggressive. Mid-game, late-game, Sanguine's going to team fight, do the usual thing.
I think this is probably a must-win for these Radiance boys, especially considering where the standings are so far in Phase 2, with PK jumping into the top 4 currently. So, it's going to be one that they're going to be pretty determined to win. I think I will give it to the Radiance boys. Maybe 2-1. I'm an optimist. I think they got their stuff back together. Let's move on to the next set, which is PK versus Renegades. Wormy, let's start with you on this one. PK versus Renegades. Who you got?
I'm feeling the Knights on this one. I think that they have kind of started to be a little bit more consistent. Cubo has kind of, at last, been kind of on the mountaintop. He's been through the meditation. He's been under the waterfall. He's come back now. And I think that he's been performing better than ever, especially with this squad. And they're kind of getting their ego back like we talked about. So I think, Renegades do have a shot at least taking a game. So I'm going to say another 2-1, but again, for the Knights. Okay.
Frost, how about you? PK versus the Renegades.
Ego is the key word here, and almost enough to me to go 2-0 Knights, but I think variety is sort of a variable. I don't know how Chuck's going to go with his homework. I don't know if variety's going to come in swinging hard, but I'm thinking this will be a 2-1 Knights win.
2-1 Knights. Okay. Joshy, how about you?
I think it's going to be a 2-0 Knights. I think Knights usually have a really good matchup into like the bottom half of the table. I mean, like versus Obey, Renegades, and E United, they always seem to just come out swinging. They're usually fast sets and they really get it done. And then they usually struggle on the top team. So I'm confident in PK getting a 2-0 here.
Sounds good. It looks like it's going to be a clean sweep for the Knights from us because, I'm voting for the PK boys in this one. Let's move on to the next set, which is SSG versus E United. So let's start with you, Frost, on this one. SSG versus E United.
As much as I do believe in General Baskin here, I don't think he's going to have what it takes to go up against a very tenured SSG. I think it's going to be 2-0 for Space Station Gaming.
All right. Joshy, how about you? Space Station Gaming versus E United.
Yeah, I think as long as we ban the Hannes, I think it's going to be a 2-0 SSG for sure. The Hannes is too much to deal with, man.
All right. So Joshy's been in the Hannes. What about you, Wormy? SSG versus United.
I mean, it's tough to say because I definitely think that on behalf of General Baskin, United has made a lot of very important strides. I don't know if they're going to be able to take a game off of Space Station because they're just kind of like the tippity top right now. I could see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Space Station are going to go 2-0 here.
Sure. General Baskin is going to run up into Admiral Nika in this set, so, I'm going to put my money on good old Admiral Nika. I think SSG have got this 2-0 as well. We do have 7 sets in this next week because that first set, the Radiant Sanguine set, is a replay. So the next set this week is Ghost versus Obey. I think we're back to you, Joshy, on this one. Ghost versus Obey. Who do you have?
I think this is going to be a general Ghost. One of their just classic sets. This is going to be 2-0 Ghost. Probably a quick one. But it depends. Maybe Obey have something up their sleeve that they're going to throw a Ghost, throw them off maybe. But yeah, it's going to be hard to beat Ghost by any team. So 2-0 Ghost for me.
All right, 2-0 for Joshy. How about you, Lermy Wormy?
I'm also on this 2-0 boat. I think Obey, we say this every week, Obey is looking better, but are they good enough to beat Ghost? I'm going to say no.
You said 2-0 for Ghost?
Yeah.
Okay. Frost, how about you? Ghost versus Obey.
As the biggest Ghost fan, I'm going to say 2-1. They're going to win very well, maybe experiment with something, and also allow Obey to get all their strongest picks in the first match. But it's still going to go in their favor. In the second one, they're going to pull out some complete jank, troll, lose it, and then they're going to win the next one. So 2-1 Ghost Gaming.
Sounds good. Yeah, I don't really think Obey is strong enough just yet to fight into Ghost, or at least we haven't really seen them be able to do that. So I'm sticking with Ghost in this one. I think it'll probably be a 2-0. 2-1 if they're trolling, as we always say, right? Next set of the week is Radiance versus E United. I think I have to start with you, Lermy Wormy, on this one. Radiance versus E United. Who you got?
I'm going to go with E United 2-1, and I think that it's going to be very dependent on how Radiance play, but, going with my prediction for earlier in the week, which is that they will take an L to Radiant, or not to Radiance, to Sanguine, rather. I think that United's going to find a way to make it happen and get a 2-1 here. I think that, as long as they, have a decent performance up against SSG, even though they very likely will not win, I think that it could be a big morale boost, especially if they do somehow find a win in that matchup. And that could be really all they need to topple Radiance, especially since they've been growing at such a fast rate.
Sure. Frost, how about you? Radiance versus E United.
Oof, this one's going to be rough. It kind of depends on how the SSG match goes with them. If they lose that, their confidence might be down just a little bit. But I wonder if they're also thinking Radiance is asleep right now and go for something there. It might just come down to the Hunters. Honestly, Cyclone is very clean usually. He was looking really sloppy his last few matches. And against Snoopy, I think normally he would win that. I think this is going to be a miracle. It's going to be a 2-1 E United.
All right. Joshy, let's wrap it with you. Radiance versus E United.
I think this is going to be the most important set of the week. Maybe not like in the games, but I think this is the biggest set of the week. I think E United, even if they lose SSG like 2-0, I don't think they're gonna be like too bothered, I guess. Not bothered, but like SSG is number one. If United can beat like the middle table teams, and especially this Radiance, which is on, like, I've got them predicted to lose to Sanguine. So if they lose to Sanguine, they'll be on a 5-loss streak, I think. Yeah. So if United can pick up a win here, that's like 6 losses for Radiance. But I do think I have Radiance winning this set. I haven't seen too much from E United yet that will like make me think they'll like beat the top 3 teams.
Sure.
Because Radiance is still a top 3 team, regardless of their form. If they find it again, they can be the best. So I'm gonna have 2 on Radiance.
Yeah, I heard you say form there, and kind of feels like that might be the operative word for this Radiance squad. How do they respond coming off of losing all of these sets back to back to back? This is, this stretch, especially having to do the makeup games, I think is going to really be tough for them to try and sort of refine that identity after 3 weeks off. I think I'm going to go for the upset here. E United will take this one 2-1. All right. SSG have a doubleheader this weekend. I'm sure you know that, Joshy. And they're playing my boys, the PK boys. I think we will start with you, Frost, on this one. Spacestation Gaming versus PK. Who do you got?
I think it's going to be slow. You got Zap trying to play clean, and their whole team is well aware of the whole, against the lower teams, we kick them into the ground, and against the higher teams, they spit on us. So I think it's going to be really slow-paced all around. But in the end, it's going to come down to the team fights, and I think SSG is just way cleaner while also being meta adjacent. So 2-0 Space Station.
All right, Joshy, how about you? You think your boys are going to take it 2-0?
Yeah, so far this phase, we're 4-0 versus PK. So I'm going to predict that we're going to win 2-0 and keep it undefeated versus PK this phase.
Sounds good. Lermy Wormy, how about you?
same boat. I think PK is within striking distance. They certainly, like Frost said, have performed incredibly well against the lower teams, but up against the best of the best, I mean, it's hard to say. They certainly could have a really good game, but I think if we're talking general performance across this phase so far, it's got to be Space Station 2-0.
I mean, you do say they have a chance, so I got to go with PK here. 2-1, PK gonna win it. All I need is a chance, okay? All I need is a chance. All right, last game of the weekend is Sanguine versus Renegades. I think this is also a pretty important game for both of these teams. So let's start with you. I think we're back to you, Joshy, on this one. Sanguine versus Renegades. Who you got?
I think I've got Sanguine going to take this set. Maybe 2-1. I think Renegades can almost take a team to game 3, and I think every team almost game 3. But Sanguine have been looking really good lately. I think Panatom, like we said before, has been finding his form. He's been carrying a few games ago. Shinto, like you try and ban out Shinto, he can still go on the FOF as like the 5th god. Mm-hmm. So I think Sanguine are going to edge this game 2-0.
All right. Lermy, how about you? Sanguine versus the
Same
Renegades.
Boat. I mean, everything that Joshy said, I think too. There's like nothing really to add. I think that, Renegades have, again, taken a step up with getting variety, but I think that Sanguine just have cleaned it up. They're going to clean them up as well and go 2-0 here.
Sounds good. 2-0 for Sanguine, says Lermy. Frost, how about you?
Sanguine doesn't do well against change. They play on their previous data. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're really good at predicting what like variety is going to bring to the table here. I did say they were going to beat Radiance though, and they are very good at riding on their own highs. I think this is going to end up being 2-1. Renegades does take one, but Sanguine's going to buckle down and probably come through with it.
All right. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. You would think that Sanguine would be the favorite, but I don't know. I sort of expect the variety meshing to be a little bit stronger this week, so maybe they can pull it off. I got the Renegades taking this one, 2-1. So, maybe I'm just being a contrarian about it, but come on. I need them to get some wins, right? All right. I think that's basically all we have. Do you guys have any questions you wanted to talk to Joshy about? Or, I don't know, Joshy, if you have anything you want to, talk about the league, soapbox about, this is a perfect opportunity for, to get your thoughts out here.
Tell them it's all shite, isn't it? Pay them more.
I wish.
If only.
One thing I wanted to say, I know we spoke about earlier about like the picks and stuff. Mm-hmm. Just as a general note, like picks and bans, I guess. I think I remember we spoke about the Anubis specifically, and that teams like hiding, like they're not really hiding picks, but like for us, for example, like we are completely fine with picking the same 5 gods for like 3 months in a row if we have to, right? Like if we're winning every game, then why change it?
Sure.
And I think more teams could be like that as well. But when you're losing sets, you usually want to change things, right?
Yeah.
So going into each week, like we see Radiance going back to the Terrorama. So and then that didn't work out for them. So I think we're going to come into this week against Sanguine and United, and we're probably going to see a completely different draft maybe from the previous weeks. Same with like Renegades, I guess, because they lost to United. So maybe they'll switch things up. But like when we come to like us and Ghost, I feel like SSG and Ghost pretty much play the same almost every week. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of other teams are constantly changing. I think that's a cool dynamic in the league, because we never like we always see like Bobby, for example, playing a new god, and then Sanguine are trying things like, yeah, I think it's a pretty cool dynamic in the league.
Is it a little bit of like, make them show that they can be what you're putting out there to start with? Before having to show like your counter punches and things like that. Like if they can't beat what your starting position is, why switch it up, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially in like the bans, because obviously every like almost every single set, like Afro's banned, so that's like not a free ban, but I don't know how to word it. It's like we don't have to worry about them banning like something else because we kind of know they're gonna ban Afro.
Sure.
So like, and then we saw like people like ban Amy, or like Hera, whereas other teams they have to ban other things. So I feel like our picks and bans are so wide open that we can pretty much get the same thing every game. And obviously, if they're not beating us, then why would we change it, right?
Yeah.
And until people find a flaw in it, there's no need to go new gods. Like we always try things in scrims, and it's like, for example, like we'll try like 60 different gods in mid, and we'll have like 10 games on in scrims, but we'll never play in SPL because why would we change what we're winning with, right?
Yep.
Until we get to tournaments there.
Yeah,
Sure.
That's when everybody's gonna go, okay, surprise factors right now. Because what's the like you mentioned that like Ghost and your team tend to have the tendency of playing the same stuff. Has SSG beaten Ghost aside from the sub game?
not in a full set. I think we beat in phase 1, but not phase 2 yet.
Exactly. So with that there, I'm anticipating, you don't even have to confirm this or anything, but I'm anticipating that these two teams are going to really pull out something nutty later on into the season, whereas
Sure.
these guys, you do have the ones that are, okay, we got to find what's coming in, we got to figure out what clicks, and then we can pull out the secret stuff.
Mhm.
Or maybe they already found the secret stuff, and they're right now just kind of looking for something to hold them on over until they get to playoffs.
Sure. Anything else, or should we wrap it up here? I don't know how late it is for you, Joshy. Are you good?
Sorry?
Are you good on time? I know it must be pretty late for
I
you.
have all the time.
Okay. Yeah, go for your questions.
What's the inherent advantage, like you said, to picking the same stuff and being, I said, for lack of a better word, predictable, I guess? Because your team, it just goes, these are our picks, deal with it. Sanguine does the exact same thing, but they don't have nearly as much success as you guys. So, like, where is it? Is it just because there's a big gray area for Sanguine where it's like, these are our picks, and they happen to be meta, really prominent meta characters, whereas SSG, I call them meta adjacent because it goes, over there's the meta picks, and then here's our picks. Pick which ones you want to ban out.
Yeah, we've had this discussion where it's like, obviously, we often ban like Persephone and Aura and stuff because we feel like we have the free bans as well. Let me just like think for a second about what you said.
Yeah, how about it? Just the general like advantages and disadvantages of everyone sort of knowing what you're known for.
Yeah, well, obviously the disadvantages are we are predictable, but like I said, like it's been how many weeks that we've pretty much played like more or less the same style of comp at least, and it still worked. So it's kind of like we're predictable, but they have to do something to make us change. And if they can't figure that out, then that's on them. And then with the Sanguine as well, for lack of a better word, I guess maybe we're just better. Like I don't know. Like I feel like a lot of the games we fall behind early, right?
Yeah.
But we know how to come back. Like I don't know, that we're really good at just knowing how to come back. I guess communication. Like Cherry knows when to pick a fight and how. And like, okay, we're gonna win this fight, and he's also gonna like, okay, we shouldn't fight here because we're gonna lose this one. Whereas other teams, maybe Sanguine, I remember like phase 1, we would always joke because Netroid would always just go in, no matter what. If the fight's going bad, if the fight's going good, he's just going in. Maybe they like stick to just one thing and like they're running it down. Maybe don't adapt in the game. Whereas like our shot callers like Cherry, he knows like, okay, we should do this in order to win, even though we're behind. I remember in phase 1, we were literally like 12k behind. I can't remember if it was Ghost or Radiance. And we randomly grouped up in like the Golfrey pit, and we just randomly fought. And I feel like no other team would have like the initiative to go for a big play like that. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's just, I don't know, like confidence as well. I'm not sure why like we do it better than other teams. I guess it just happens that way.
I'd say like confidence is big because I always say that with Sanguine is that they pick what's good, but then they don't really know what to do with it. It's almost like old school Smite, NA versus EU back in the day. NA picked what was strong in each role. EU was more team comp oriented. So there's that confidence of like, this is how the team fight's going to go, as opposed to like, my hunter is better than your hunter, but I didn't really calculate how that synergy goes with your support thrown into the mix, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like it because you also said how many weeks has it been where you play the same way? How many years? I love watching Raffer play. It's just always the same, like very controlled style of play. they don't mean to go to mid late, but he's very good at prioritizing my farm. Maybe we take your farm, but my farm is my farm, and I'm gonna keep you off of it. I'm gonna make sure I get that, and then it just happens to evolve into a mid to late game fight style.
I think that's probably just some of the experience that Raffer has, right? Like, you play in the league for like 6-7 years at this point. You know, you just are maybe a little bit sort of set in your ways, right? You can go, Josh. You're about to say something.
I was just gonna say like something about Raffer. Like you said, like he's always just like always like the first one in and stuff, or like out of position. I remember we always like joke with him because he'd just randomly be doing something, and it would look like it's going bad, and they're like trying to kill Raffer, and then all like four of them just jump on the opportunity. Like we're really good at finding opportunities as well from like mistakes, I guess, because everyone makes mistakes. Like maybe one of us just randomly just ints or gets picked, and then other teams will be like, okay, what do we do now? Whereas like, I know all these boys are so experienced, where it's like, okay, we have to do this, and it's just good at like finding opportunities in like bad situations as well.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the advantages of all that, the tenure and the synergy with the same boys, eh?
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say the issue was with Vote early on? Early on, was it just kind of difficult getting the reins in? He was looking kind of sloppy. What was those games at the start? Oh God, I was actually betting against SSG, just saying if Vote gets soloed at the start, it's gonna snowball out of control.
Was this the start of the year or this phase?
The start of the year was the sloppiest part of it. Started this phase. He didn't seem in sync, but not nearly as bad as the start of the year.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Maybe it's just the way that we play dual lane, because a lot of the time, like for example, I remember at the start of this phase, it was kind of rough in scrims because we'd always just be going against Herc every game. And like we'd always just be like behind inherently because of our picks in dual lane, but they would play it like they're even or ahead, and so like they'd just be fighting like this Herc, Cupid or something, and they'd just be dying, and then like the scrimming environment for the dual lane was like, no matter what we do, we're just dying, but they're like playing it also kind of badly, and then I don't know, we just picked up form, make sure scrims we're trying, like speaking about, because especially at the start of this phase, like during the break when we were scrimming, they wouldn't like we're going to the scrim and they wouldn't really communicate of how they should play the lane, and then they'd just be losing the lane. And I guess that like kind of correlated into SPL where the dual lane synergy was kind of off a little bit. But yeah, practice has been a lot better this phase, and yeah, we can see it in the dual lane. Like even though we're against the Herc now, we know what to do against it.
Sure.
That's so funny to me. Just SSG to me is like the gentleman squad in a way. They're very regal, very civilized, very calculated in a way. But then you've got Vote, who's very scrappy, still come off of teams like Rival, where it's fight all the time, and just
Vote loves fighting. No matter what he's going in.
How is it that you just mesh in a character like that? I guess I don't know. It's been a thrill to watch.
Yeah, well, I know, like we because we're all EU. We're like even me, like we've all been friends for like at least 4 or 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're just picking up someone from like NA where like they might not fit in personality wise, because we all know each other from so many years ago. So it's a lot easier to work with that type of player rather than if they were to pick up an NA ADC. I'm almost certain it would probably not work out.
Sure. All right, anything else, or should we wrap it up here?
How deep are we right now? Like 2/3? How many weeks are left? Jeez.
I think there are 5 weeks left. 4 or 5 weeks left.
5 weeks left before playoffs.
Yeah, this next week is going into like the third round, because I know that we play PK, which is the first team we played. So like we're going into the third
the third round of the phase.
So this is when they're gonna. This is right here. This is the meaty one. We're gonna start.
Well, yeah, and they're like double games because of Radiance not playing for 2 weeks. So.
Like if you look at the standings, it's like us and Ghost have the same wins. Then Radiance, PK, and Sanguine all have the same wins, and then Renegade 4, Unite, Obey 3. So the standings can definitely just randomly shift up here.
Sure.
For sure in the middle.
Is it the same as last time, where top 6 get playoffs, bottom 2 don't?
I think everyone goes to the playoffs. Yeah, I think it's top 6, I guess.
Yeah,
top 6.
No, I don't know.
So
what
these
the
standings are
exact
going
plan
to
is with the
matter
minor
for
league
Albany
guys.
United. What?
The minor league guys. I mean, I don't know the exact game plan, but maybe did they even get flown out? Because they said the. I mean, of course, I should have the info if anyone does, right? But they said what it's going to be like an in-studio event for Worlds, and then like my thought process is from what they've said is the first couple of days are the qualifiers, and then the last couple of days is going to be headed off with the big announcements or whatever for season 8, and then like the actual like World Championship period. So my thought process is that they're going to fly out the teams, like the minor league teams that make it. I guess it's the 2 or whatever, and then do it from there. But like, I don't know. That seems like it'll be interesting to finally be able to get some NAU action, at least from that standpoint.
Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown this week. Be sure to watch us every week on Smite Game at 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. If you have any suggestions for guests or player interviews, feel free to DM me at APM2 on Twitter or at APM Productions on Twitter. And to catch this episode if you miss them or see extended cuts of my player interviews or my discussion with these analysts, go to our YouTube, which is APM Productions on YouTube. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.